Hi, my name is Candace Roma, and I am a book editor. I specialize in fiction, creative nonfiction, and memoirs. I've been editing for about 20 years, and I have my MFA in creative fiction from the University of Notre Dame, and my BA is from Dartmouth, also in creative fiction. I am also a writer. I currently have a book, a manuscript that's in the querying process, so I definitely know how you guys feel. Trust. What I want to talk today about is I've been seeing a lot on Twitter, people saying that they're having a hard time writing and what can they do to continue to work on their book if it's not actually putting words to paper. And a lot of people are dealing with this, so you're not alone. I actually am working on a second book, and I've been working on it for months, and I actually haven't written word one. So what do you do? The first thing I would suggest is people usually give the same advice. Read. That you should be reading because reading teaches us so much about writing. Well, that's definitely true. So what should you be reading? If you think about what to read, you can think about pleasure reading. Pleasure reading definitely helps you in learning how to become a better writer. If you go to books that you really enjoy, you can look at how they structure their stories, what they do to explain how emotion works, how the pacing works, and maybe you're learning these things unconsciously, simply by the fact that you enjoy the book. But also, in addition to pleasure reading, you can do a lot of reading that's about the craft of writing, and that can be super helpful. There's one of my favorite books, which I'll mention in the description box, called The Art of Dramatic Writing, and it's written by Lajos Egri. And it's just an amazing book that talks a lot about pre-writing. And pre-writing is coming up with your premise, developing character profiles, figuring out what conflicts are going to happen between characters. There's a lot of that you can learn and that you can do before you start writing. Also, if you want to look up The Writer's Journey, that is also an extremely incredible book for you to learn from when you're not actually writing. Also, another thing that I would suggest for you to read are comp titles. So at some point, you're going to get to the querying process, you're going to finish your book, and you're going to want to send this thing out into the world and find an agent if you have traditional publishing aspirations. So comp titles are basically comparative titles that are very similar to the book that you've written. So the book I've written is a speculative fiction book, and so I read Wanderers by Chuck Wendig, and I also read A Beginning at the End by Mike Chen. All of those books deal with kind of apocalyptic situations and what happens after. So those are the books that I use as comp titles. You need to be very familiar with the books that are current in your genre. There's a real tendency to want to say that your book is like Hemingway or that your book is like Stephen King. Those are comp titles. Well, it may very well be true, but it's also not saying that you know what the current market is like. They've had decades-long careers to build up the kind of following that they have. So basically, knowing what's happening now is super important. Another thing that you can do when you're not writing is actually journaling. It's definitely still writing, but it's not actually writing the book that you're working on. If you're journaling, that's writing that you never think that anyone is ever going to see other than you. So there's really no pressure to make sure that the words are right, if they're spelled correctly, if the pacing is working, there's no character development. You're just writing your thoughts. And the reason why that's important is because there's going to come a point where you can lend those feelings and emotions to your character. And knowing how to write those different things and put those feelings into words is going to be really important. Let's say you're dealing with anxiety. How would you write about that? Is it something that you're feeling in your body? Is it the way that your thoughts are working? How does it actually feel to be anxious? And how is that different from just feeling stressed out? So if you figure out those things and how you would describe them, then later on you can write about them, because you really don't want to do is say that your character's anxious, because the first thing I would do as an editor is make a comment asking, can you show that rather than telling? So The final thing that you can do when you're not writing is just living. Living is writing. Thinking is writing. A lot of the times I have my best ideas for writing when I'm not doing anything at all, because I'm not consciously thinking about it. I'm not stressing my brain. And then all of a sudden something will come to me. So make sure that you have something with you all the time, either a notebook, or my husband gets really weird text messages from me when I actually have an idea and think of something. Those are all ways that you can think about writing before you put any words on the page. I hope that helped, and if you want to see more blogs and tips on writing and what's happening in the publishing industry, definitely go to my website, CandiceRoma.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at an editor called Candice. And I just hope you guys subscribe to my channel, and we'll come back because I'll have more stuff in the future. Bye!